Hi, I'm a Forester here, and this is a review of my knife collection. I don't have a very large collection, only 24 knives, but to make it more interesting, I thought I would rank them in order from the knives that I'd get rid of first at this end to the knives that I would save for last if I had to get rid of them at that end. And the top 5 choices are covered up with a handkerchief. There's only 24 knives, but let's jump into it so it won't take too long. The knives at this end, these two, are El Cheapo knives that were just giveaways at meetings that I attended. I wish they would stop doing this actually because, these are pieces of crap. I've never used them. They just go in a drawer and it's just wasting resources. This is a knife that my brother gave me, and I actually enjoyed carrying this, but it's a fairly inexpensive knife from Cabela's. I used it a lot, and this pivot pin wore out, and it's just about ready to fall apart. That's why it's here on the list. I just did a review of this fella. This is the Kershaw Crown. It's actually growing on me, but not much. And, it's a cheap knife, $15 knife. It'll get the job done, but it would go pretty early in the process. This is a knife I bought from FN Gun Factory. I enjoy carrying it, but it's not a very high quality knife. I think this is the cheapest knife of any of the knives that I've bought recently. It was $7. Now, out of coincidence, these first 5 knives were all made in China. This is the first U.S. knife that's on the list, and this is the knife that I carried for the bulk of my career. This is an old-timer knife. It's just a traditional pocket knife. This stayed in my pocket for probably 20 years or so before I really got into buying most of the knives in this knife collection. This was a knife that was very similar to it. This one has taken a lot of abuse, and I want to get the blade reworked and start carrying it again, but I really like this traditional style of knife. When I first got into knives, one-hand opening knives, this was the first knife that I bought. This is a Cutco knife. I enjoy it. I carried it for a while, but the blade is just so thick that it's hard to cut anything, from cutting paper products to anything else, and so I, as a result, really don't carry it much. This is a Trapper. It's made by Remington, and I carry it very lightly. I like it. It's got high quality. It's a bit heavy, and that's probably why I don't carry it more than I do. This knife right here has probably got more use than any knife on the table. This is a Victorinox. It's a floral knife, or a grafting knife as I call it, but I've probably made thousands of grafts with this knife, and I carry it in my pocket when I'm working in the yard just to prune shrubbery. Okay, this is a Kershaw Scallion. I enjoy this knife. I like the speed assist that it has. It's a good gentleman's knife. I don't particularly like the style, and that's why it's where it is in the order. This is a Kershaw Blur, as probably most of you know. It's a good knife, and this was my first tactical knife. Now, looking back on it, I don't really think of this as a tactical knife. It's a bit chunky, heavy, clunky when it opens, but it was my first tactical knife. This knife was hard to place in order. It was my dad's pocket knife. It's the only case knife that I own, and really hard to put in order. It's a single function knife, just a pocket knife for, to carry around during the day. And so anyway, I put it somewhere in the middle of the pack. Okay, this is my Boker Prom Queen, if you watched my review of it. This is a beautiful knife. I really enjoy carrying it. It's a nice one-hand opening knife, a little temperamental, but I think I've worked through those issues. Okay, everybody knows the Spyderco Tenacious. This knife gets carried a lot. I really enjoy it. It's a do-everything knife, and it's cheap enough to where you don't have to worry about, taking care of it. Just use it however you want. It was hard to decide between these two knives, but the Spyderco, what is it? Somebody help me. Delica. The Spyderco Delica is a little bit lighter. The blade, the VG10 blade, almost never needs sharpening, and I'd probably hang on to it a little bit longer than the Tenacious. Now, this knife, the Kershaw Skyline, is one that I would probably, these were a tough choice to put in order, but it fits my hand a little bit better. It has quick deployment, and so I think I would hang on to it longer. Now the choices got harder and harder to rank as I moved up this list. This is my Almar Eagle. I carried this as my tactical blade for a while, and it's a beautiful knife. It's made it this high up in the order, mainly out of looks. I don't carry it all that much. I do carry it occasionally, but I really like the way it looks. This was probably the hardest knife to put in order. This is my Benchmade. I think it's a 235 if I remember right, but it's already discontinued by Benchmade, I believe. But it's a beautiful gentleman's folder, and I do lean toward gentleman folders. So these two were hard to put in order, but that's just how the chips fell. Okay, now fifth from the top is a knife. It's an Uncle Henry pocket knife, and I never carry this knife, but it was given to me for speaking at a conference by a company, Champion, and this has a lot of sentimental value to me, and I also like the style of the knife, but I keep it just for sentimental reasons, and I would hang on to it mainly because of the people that I associate with that company. Number 4, you've seen a review of this just recently, but this is my Spyderco Sage 4. I think it's a beautiful knife. I love the wood handle and the metal bolsters, titanium bolsters. Got the blade, almost never gets dull. I enjoy carrying this. Number 3 on the list is a discontinued Benchmade. And let me make sure I get the name right. It's a Benchmade 705. It's a McHenry and Williams style knife. And I don't see why that knife was discontinued. It's a beautiful knife and is a perfect size blade to do just about anything that you want. Okay, number 2 on the list. You knew you were going to see the Menundi sooner or later, and it made it to number 2. You can't say anything bad about this knife. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's a great size knife also. So what knife would knock out the Menundi for the number 1 position? And I didn't really have that hard of a time making that decision. Okay, drum roll please. There it is. It's a Benchmade. My memory's terrible, but it's the Benchmade 940. And this is a perfect size knife for anything that you want to use it for. You can't open a knife any easier. The blade is sharp, stays sharp. It's a perfect size. And one thing that I've always noticed about it is how well balanced it is. But that's my number 1 knife. If I had to get rid of all knives except for one, I would stay with the Benchmade 940. I'd be interested in what would be your last knife if you only could keep one. I welcome any video responses that you might make. Take care.